Here we are, born to be kings. We're the princes of the
Hey there, nation. Welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and now it's time for another edition of Age of the Realms. Age of the Realms is our series of Warhammer Age of Sigmar battle reports. This is battle report number 31. It is a 1,000 point battle that was fought between my friend Skarsnik, Warlord of the Eight Peaks, with his Crooked Moons of the Moonclan Grots, versus yours truly of my new army, the Lords of Azure Skies, my Stormcast Eternals Army. So any of you guys who follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you might have seen some uploads that we put on the website recently. We talked about some of the photos of our army that we've been working on for the Stormcast Eternals, and so if you also watch our hobby side series Ride the Lightning, we've had 2 episodes on that series come out. We've also talked about the 1,000 point army that we've been creating on this part. So for those of you guys who are familiar with that, we decided to go with a brand new type of army for my battle reports. I'm decided to try out Stormcast Eternals. Always thought they look kind of cool, so I just want to see exactly what they can bring and what kind of stuff they can do for the battles. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to put on some background music real fast, showing some photos of the armies, and also going to run the list of what exactly each army is bringing for the battle. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for that one, feel free to pause and check it out at your own leisure. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it on. Alright, so with that being said, let's go and talk about our scenario rules real quick. We're fighting on a 4x4 table. As you can see here, we got a lot of different terrain set up, primarily made up of hills, as well as towers, as well as some with wildwoods. Pretty much we're going with just a typical kind of battle line type scenario where both of us are just kind of fighting to the death. There is no real objectives for this scenario. It's just basically try to fight one another and see exactly which one of us can be defeated first. And that's pretty much how we're going to roll with this one. So with the scenario rules over, we go directly to the battle plan. As you can see on the top of the 4x4 table, both of our forces are deployed. I'm deployed on the near side of the table. My buddy Skarsnik, he's deployed on the far side of the table there. As you can see, we pretty much he's kind of gone for like a straight up line formation. His plan is pretty simple. He's going to try to cross the battlefield as quickly as possible and get engaged with my forces because he is a destruction army and Moonclan Grots. I mean, that's what they do best, is kind of get up into your face and assault you. Me, on the other hand, because I have such little numbers, I'm trying to kind of keep myself more reserved and try to protect my flanks so that way I don't get completely surrounded as well. My plan is to draw my opponent towards the center of the table and then engage him there so that way I can use the Signs of the Storm's abilities for my army to kind of deploy my other units around the table and kind of like surround him and just kind of envelop him. And that's pretty much the strategy I'm going with for this battle report. Alright, so let's go and talk about deployment real fast from my Lords of Azure Sky, my Stormcast Eternals Army. As you can see, I'm kind of deploying the bottom right-hand corner of the table. I'm doing that to kind of protect my flanks so that way I don't get completely surrounded because my opponent is playing a Moonclan Grots army, and they do get bonuses if they attack you from the flanks or from the rear, depending on what areas they're attacking from. So because of that, I'm trying to protect my flanks because I have a much smaller army than my opponents. Just kind of got up for a kind of typical like phalanx type formation. I got a line of my 10 Liberators lined up in the front there, so that way they can intercept any kind of any elements or try to attack my troops. They can kind of create that wall of Sigmar, so that way they can fight back and destroy anybody who's there. Right behind them, I have my line of Judicators as well, my 5 archers, which are the members of my the Justicars, as I call them. They're there to lend long range fire, especially with the shock bolt bow that the Prime is carrying for that unit. And also deploy with my army as well, I have my Lord Celestin on Dracoth, so that way he can use his Lord of the Host command ability to make sure that none of my forces take battle shock tests. And of course, I got my World Relictor there, primarily for him to use his battle prayers as well as to give healing storm as well as lightning storms to affect my opponent at range. As you can see on the left-hand side of the table here, I have the rest of my army. I have my Executioners, which are my unit of 5 Paladin Retributors, as well as my Witnesses, which are my 3 Prosecutors. Right now, they're off the side of the table because I plan on deploying these guys later on using the Scions of the Storm ability, where they can kind of like ride the lightning down onto the battlefield. Kind of like Thor does from from the Avengers movie, the same kind of concept. They can fly down and hopefully outmaneuver my opponent and outflank my enemy as well. Like I said before, my battle plan is to have my opponent get bogged down the center of the board and then surround him and give him into full envelopment. So I plan on surrounding my opponent with my Paladin Retributors as well as my Prosecutors as well. So with my deployment done, we go on to the deployment for the Moonclan Grots for my buddy Skarsnik. As you can see on the left-hand side there, he's got his huge unit of backstabbers, is what he calls them. They're a unit of 40 Moonclan Grots armed with short bows. They're just kind of located there on the left-hand side to kind of protect his left-hand flank. At the same time, he can get a lot of shooting attacks too when he gets within range. So very, very devastating and kind of hardy group right there to go through. And make up the right-hand side of his army as the rest of his deployment area. You can see on the right-hand side he's got the Ludas. That's that huge unit of 40 Night Goblins, Moonclan Grots, armed with spears. Located within that unit as well, he's got his Shaman, the Shrinkish Shroomhead. He's also got his General in there as well, Skarsnik, the Warlord of the 8 Peaks. He's there with his Moon Prodder as well as Gobla. He's bringing Battle Brew with him, so it makes him kind of difficult to go up against in close combat as well. And then kind of taking the very point of his army, he's got the Manglas and the Bone Breakers. That's a huge herd of squigs, escape squigs. He's got 6 herders as well as 18 cave squigs in that unit as well. And that unit is absolutely devastating because those cave squigs cause D3 damage with every single time they get one of their successful attacks. Plus, they also get bonuses for being within range of their herders as well. So that one is going to be really difficult to go up against because when you cause injuries for that unit, if they flee, they also cause additional mortal wounds as well every single time one of those guys breaks because of battle shock tests. So not looking forward to breaking that. And not to mention, my opponent also has 6 fanatics hiding somewhere within his army as well. I have no idea what units he has them in, so I got to worry about that as well. Alright, so that takes the top at turn number 1. This is after the this is during the hero phase. Stormcast Eternals, we got the manage to get the initiative on this part. So this is during the hero phase. I do 2 things. The very first thing I do is I use my Blessing Weapons ability from my Lord Relictor to use that battle prayer onto my Justicars, so that way they get every single time they roll a 6 for one of their attacks to hit, they make an additional hit on top of that, which would be very, very devastating, especially if I use on my Shock Bolt Bow that my Justicar Prime is carrying. So I decided to use that ability, battle prayer off. I also use my command ability for Lord of the Host. That's what that little skull icon is for. That means any unit within 24 inches of my Lord Celestin on Dracoth, any Stormcast Eternal units within range, don't have to worry about taking battle shock tests, which is always a good thing because my army is kind of small that way. We skip the movement phase because my plan is to have my opponent come up to me so that way I can whittle him down with some long-range fires and then eventually envelop him when he gets close up with my troops. So because of that, we go directly to the shooting phase. As you can see, not much really damage happens. Really, I only managed to kill 2 cave squigs out of the entire lot. I do manage to hit quite a bit with all my squad members. The thing is that each of the cave squigs is packing 2 wounds. So, whatever damage you can do gets mitigated from that aspect of it. So because of that, not much damage really taking place at that point. Since the rest of my phase, I really have nothing else going on during my turn. We go to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Moonclan Grots. We go off the hero phase. First of all, we use my opponent, Skarsnik uses his Rampager's ability, so that way he can roll a d6 for each one of his units, and then they move that many inches during the hero phase as well. He has the command trait that allows him to add +2 to those rolls for his units, so you can see they kind of move up kind of quickly. His cave squigs, they move up, I think, 8 inches, and then his Ludas with his general move up 7 inches. I believe his archers on the left-hand side side, then backstabs. I believe they move up 6 inches, I believe, is what ended up happening. So either case, though, his forces can move very, very rapidly. He does try to cast a spell, but unfortunately for him, though, his Shrinking Shroomhead is out of range of casting any spells, so pretty uneventful hero phase for this beginning part of the battle. So, during the move phase, in order to close up the gap as quick as he possibly can, my buddy Skarsnik decides to do an advance roll for each one of his units. Advancing in Age of Sigmar, in case you're unaware, means that he rolls a d6 and adds the total from that d6 roll to his movement characteristic. Now, a drawback for that, of course, that he won't be able to charge or be able to do any shooting, but because his army relies on getting engaged as quickly as possible with his enemy units, he just advances as quickly as he possibly can. So you can see there, he kind of has like this line formation, kind of like this wave formation taking place with his army. On the left-hand side, he has them backstabbers with that huge unit of 40 night goblins armed with bows. They're getting ready to kind of make a base of fire there on the left-hand side of the battlefield. He also moves up his cave squigs as well as his right behind them as support. He moves up Skarsnik, his general, with his spearmen as well to lend support. So very, very kind of falling into my plans really, because my goal is to have him kind of enter the area between the Sylvaneth Forest there on the left-hand side of my army, as well as the tower that's on the right-hand side, so that way he gets bogged down and I can fully envelop him and kind of damage him that way. So things are going according to plan for the most part. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the charge phase. Now the reason why we're going to the charge phase on this one is because of the fanatics. Now when we read the rules on the fanatics, it doesn't state that they can't charge even though their unit that they're traveling with didn't advance roll. So we just kind of went with the idea that they're allowed to charge wherever they want to because the rules state during any charge phase. So we decided to go with that aspect. So you can see there my buddy Skarsnik decides to deploy both his units of fanatics for his kamikaze boys. He deploys them out of the unit of his backstabbers on the left-hand side, as well as his bone breakers and manglers on the right-hand side, and gets them within that neat little line formation. He plans on moving up 2d6 inches forward to see if he can engage with my liberators. Alright, and as you can see, his units, they charge forward. About 4 of those out of the 6 fanatics make full contact with my liberators, so I will need to go up against those guys during my combat phase. And these guys are kind of deadly. They do get d6 attacks. I believe the damage on their attacks are 2 apiece, so it's very, very devastating. It could be potentially very, very bad for my liberators, especially if they manage to land off a lot of their high-strength attacks. Alright, so with that we go directly to combat as well as the battle shock phases. As you can see, I do manage to kill all of the fanatics that came my way. Unfortunately though, I only have 6 liberators left over. 4 of those guys got mauled to death by those fanatics. That was absolutely devastating for me. Luckily though, I didn't have to worry about taking a battle shock test because I have my Lord of the Host ability, so none of my liberators ran away, which is kind of a plus. But at the same time though, fanatics, man, they're just as deadly in Age of Sigmar as they were back in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and I'm not looking forward to finding the last 2 that are left. So with battle shock phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2. I managed to take the initiative on that part, so because that we go directly to the hero phase. Once again, I use exactly the same kind of format for my abilities as I did the last hero phase. I use my Lord Celestin on Dracoth's Lord of the Host ability, so that way none of my units within 24 inches have to worry about taking battle shock tests. I also use the Blessed Weapons battle prayer from my Royal Relictor onto my my Judicators, so that way they can get additional shots off if they roll a 6 to hit. So that's pretty much what I do for the hero phase at this point. And during the hero phase, I got a little overeager in my opinion. I decided to deploy my forces kind of ahead of schedule. I think the reason why is because I got a little panicked when I took on those fanatics the last turn, so I was kind of worried about getting the grips of the rest of his army. So you can see on this table, I deployed both my prosecutors as well as my paladins using the the Signs of the Storm ability. What you do in order to use that ability, you have to roll a d6 for each of the units you plan on moving. On a roll of 3 up, they arrive on the battlefield. If they don't roll up 3 up, they just kind of stay exactly where they're at. So because of that, my guys kind of lightning strike there on the left-hand flank. You can see I have my witnesses, which are my 3 prosecutors, and my paladins right behind the main line of the looters in the back. And so long as you're not within 9 inches, you can line your troops anywhere you basically want to do that at that point. So now I can kind of get my opponent kind of surrounded and start engaging him at 3 different sides, and hopefully that'll be enough to damage him. I do admit though, having my forces deployed now instead of later was kind of a bad move because it does allow my opponent time to react, but at the same time though, I'm just trying to scatter his forces because my infantry units can't take the amount of damage they just took during the last combat phase. Alright, so with that we go directly to the shooting phase. The first thing you might notice, of course, all the damage that my opponent took. The reason why is because I unloaded everything. I opened up my adjudicators using the Sky Shot Bolt. I got a really good shot off onto that unit of Mangler, not Manglers, the unit of Cave Squigs on the right hand side as well. I also used my General Stormbreath ability for Dracoth to cause maximum damage for the mortal wounds. I got 3 mortal wounds for all the units within 2 inches of that. So you can see I kind of aimed for that little center point between all 3 units in the middle there, so that way I could affect all of them. Managed to take out 3 guys from each unit with my mortal wound, which is pretty awesome at that point. Also fired with my adjudicators as well as my prosecutors. They kind of threw their hammers directly into the backstabbers. Managed to kill a handful of those guys as well, which is always a good thing. Alright, so with shooting phase over with, we go directly to the charge phase, and as you can see, I kind of decided to abandon my plan and just kind of rush forward as quick as I possibly could. In the back there, I send my Paladin Retributors directly into the back of the Ludus, so that way I get my opponent's General's unit engaged in close combat. I also send my Prosecutors into the left-hand side of the Backstabbers, so that way I start engaging those guys and chop those guys apart. I also send my General with his Dracoth, as well as my Liberators, directly into his Cave Squigs, because I identify those guys being the most dangerous. I decided to keep my Adjudicators as well as my Lord Relictor in reserve, so that way they can lend some long range support as well as magical support if I need it, and that's pretty much what I did for the charge phase at this point. Alright, so during the combat phase as well as the battle shock phase, as you can see, I did a pretty good job almost cutting that unit of goblins with the short bows almost in half. I did lose a prosecutor for my troubles, but on the other hand, though, in my opinion, that was kind of well worth the risk because I killed some of these guys, which of course fled to their eventual guys running away for the battle shock test, which kind of dropped this unit down to half strength. So pretty happy with the effects that these three prosecutors had against this huge mob of night goblins so far. At the same time, combat between the Cave Squigs as well as their handlers went exceptionally well. I did lose 2 more of my Liberators in the process of doing that. Also managed to put a floating wound onto one of my Liberators as well. But as far as I'm concerned, though, getting rid of that unit of Cave Squigs is absolutely paramount. My Lord Silicon Dracoth is an absolute beast in close combat. He finished a lot of those guys off as well. Luckily for me, because Night Goblins have such a really low leadership ability for their bravery tests, a lot of those guys pretty much just ran away during the battle shock phase, which ended up being very, very important for me as well. So that was the combat that took place here in the center portion of the table. And close combat up here in the top with my Paladins was absolutely brutal as well. As you can see, I managed to kill 15 of the Night Goblins off. I think I managed to kill, 8 of them was ended up happening. The rest kind of fled because of battle shock tests is what ended up happening. At that point, though, I decided to attack the Night Goblins, not the General. And the reason why is because the Night Goblin General has the ability that if you roll a 6 to hit, you treat those 6s as 1s. So it basically negates my Paladin's ability to cause mortal damage with their lightning blast with their hammers. So because of that, I decided to focus on his troops instead. Those were the more immediate threat in my opinion because he has more attacks, and more attacks equals more chances of me losing guys. So I decided to go after most of his troops. Luckily for me, though, I didn't lose a single Paladin in the exchange, so things were going very, very well for me during the combat phase as well as the battle shock phase. Alright, so with that being said, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Moonclan Grots. During the hero phase, my buddy decides to use his command ability for his general. It's called I'm the Boss and I'll stab him good. And what that does, that allows his spearman ability, because that's the unit he decided to choose. Every single time they roll a wound score of 6 up, they actually cause double damage, which could potentially be very deadly because he has so many Night Goblins, and then the law of large numbers would state that that's kind of like in his favor to do very well in that part. So because I am a little afraid to see exactly what happens. For movement phase, there isn't much movement because everybody's engaged in close combat, so because of that, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, as you can see in this photo, one of my prosecutors just basically dropped dead. As ended up happening. Their shots were largely, for the most part, missing, but enough shots got through, and also enough shots got through to wound that I lost one of my prosecutors in the process of all the shooting that took place from those Night Goblins. So I only have one guy left, and things are not looking very good for my prosecutors on the left-hand flank at this point. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase and as well as the battle shock phase. And as you can see in this photo, those Night Goblins had no problem whatsoever getting rid of the very last prosecutor that I had. So my witnesses are now completely gone, which is kind of sad because those guys are doing pretty well for me. And I hate to see my troops go away because I'm playing Stormcast Eternals, and every single loss that I take actually really hurts because I don't have very many men in my army at this point. Meanwhile, combat here on the upper top of the board between my Paladin Retributors as well as against the Ludus actually went very, very well for me. I did lose a Paladin on one of my forces because of that command ability that lets you do double damage. So I did lose one of my Paladins, and I got a floating wound into my 4th Paladin as well. But in the exchange, I managed to kill, I think, 10 of those guys. This includes the ones that fled away because of failing battle shock tests as well. So things are looking very, very well for my troops up here in the northern side of the battlefield. All right, so that takes the top of turn number 3, and my buddy Scarsnick managed to take the initiative on this part, so because of that, the Moonclan Grots will go first. Just like last time, he's using exactly the same command ability on the best, now stabbing good, so that way his Spearman as well as his General get double damage for a roll of 2 wound score of 6, so he decides to keep with that one. At the same time, he also managed to cast Curse of the Bad Moon with his Shaman, and he decides to target my Lord Celestin on Dracoth. Alright, so during the hero phase, we're going to show this little picture here where it talks about Curse the Bad Moon. Now, in case you're unfamiliar how it works, what you do is you target an enemy unit within 18 inches, right? What you do is you also cause D3 mortal wounds onto that unit. Luckily for my opponent, he managed to put 3 mortal wounds onto my general. Now, after you get done with that, you could also target this enemy unit so long as within 6 inches of your original target, in which case my Liberators were. He has to roll a D6 on a 4 up. That blast will then travel to the next unit, so because that he causes, I think he causes another 2 mortal wounds, I believe. No, he causes 3 mortal wounds because one of my Liberators died and another one got a floating wound on top of that, so that was pretty rough. But to make matters worse, though, my Judicators, which are my bowmen, are also within 6 inches on my Liberator unit. As you can see in this photo, my Liberators also took 3 mortal wounds as well, so I lost one of my Judicators and also got a floating wound put on my 4th one. And then to make matters worse, my Lord Elector was also within 6 inches, so my opponent rolled a d6. He got like a 5, so the Curse of the Bad Moon hits my Lord Elector. Also managed to cause 3 mortal wounds as well, so that guy is now carrying 3 mortal wounds, which is absolutely devastating. That spell, man, it doesn't go off very well, it doesn't work very well, but when it does work well, it really works well. That was absolutely devastating. So with the hero phase over, we go directly to the movement phase, and as you can see in this photo, my buddy decides to take his backstabbers, manages to turn them 180 degrees backwards, and he also moves them up just 5 inches, getting them close to the left-hand flank of my Lord Celestin. So as you can see at this point now, my original plan was have my opponent surrounded, but now it looks like that my opponent might be surrounding my forces, which would be very, very bad for me if that actually goes off. So things are not looking very good for my forces in the center of the battlefield. Luckily for me, though, during the shooting phase, his Night Goblins did atrociously bad on that part. They only managed to cause 1 wound onto my Lord Celestin on Dracoth, so I got very, very lucky on that part. So with shooting phase over, we go directly to the charge phase. And in the charge phase, my opponent Scarsnick decides to send in his backstabbers directly into my unit of Liberators as well as Lord Celestin. So you can see my forces there. They're kind of turning around in order to kind of engage them. So now I have like this combat taking place between my Liberators and Lord Celestin on Dracoth against his little backstabbing unit. So it'd be kind of interesting to see exactly how that combat turns out. And as you can see, we're now in the combat as well as battle shock phases. As you can see, I do manage to kill quite a bit of his Night Goblins. However, his Night Goblins did manage to kill off my Lord Celestin on Dracoth, so they managed to slip the last few wounds on that guy, so he goes down blazing to the blaze of glory, so I just lost my general, so things are not looking very good. Luckily for me, though, my Liberators do manage to stand their ground, not a single one gets wounded, but at the same time, though, I lost my general, which means now that all my forces will have to start taking battle shock tests for the rest of the battle. However, there is a silver lining. I do manage to kill my opponent's general at the same time, so that was kind of nice. But as you can see now, I only have 2 Paladin Retributors left over. That now stick and good ability where they get double damage for wound rolls of 6 was very, very good for my opponent. Managed to kill 2 of my Paladins at the same time, so very, very brutal in that part. This battle is actually turning out to be very bloody between for being Moonclan Grots versus Stormcast Eternals. And now because both of our generals are dead, we kind of lose out on our command abilities, which is kind of interesting to see exactly how that play out. Alright, so that takes the bottom of turn number 3 for my Stormcast Eternals. As you can see, this is just an overhead shot of the battlefield, just so you can get an idea what's going on. My Paladins are basically on the very last of their legs. There's only 2 Paladins left on the very top of the page. I still got that huge unit of Moonclan Grots to deal with. At the same time, my unit of Liberators also doing very bad as well, because now they're within striking range of those little bowmen, and that's also bad. And I also have my 4 Judicators as well as my Lord Elector left, so things are not looking very good for my forces at this point. During the hero phase, I decided to use my Healing Storm ability from my Lord Elector. I managed to heal all 3 mortal wounds that I originally had lost from the Curse of the Bad Moon, because that's my only leader left for my unit. I need that guy to stick around to lend some magical support for my forces. And I also use my Bless the Weapons ability onto Battle Prayer onto my unit of Liberators, so that way anybody rolls a 6 will get additional attack onto this unit of Night Goblins, because I got to just sort with these guys very, very quickly and just kind of destroy this unit as best as I can. So that pretty much makes it the hero phase on this part. So during the movement phase, I decided to move my Juicicators up their normal 4 inches so that way they get a good line of shot against that unit of backstabbers as well. I also decided to advance my Lord Relictor, adding 6 inches to his movement so you can see he kind of rockets across the battlefield. My plan is to get him into the back of the Ludus so that way he can lend his magical storm ability for Lightning Storm against that unit of Ludus and hopefully take out some guys that way, or he can use his Battle Prayer's ability for either one of the units that are engaged in close combat as well. And that pretty much makes up the move phase for my side of the table. During the shooting phase, I managed to kill 4 more Night Goblins, and that's 4 more less Goblins I got to worry about, so things are looking pretty good for my forces at this point. So with shooting phase over, we go directly to the combat and battle shock phases. Needless to say, during the charge phase, I decided to send my Adjudicators directly into that unit of Night Goblins because that unit needs to die, so that way I can liberate my forces and just finally bring this battle to a close. And in the combat as well as the battle shock phase, you can see in this photo, I pretty much had no problem whatsoever wiping out the backstabbers. I killed those guys to the last man. Those who did not survive ran away because they failed their battle shock test, so that part was pretty awesome for that part. And luckily for me, when I rolled to hit for both of my units of my paladins, I rolled 6s, so because that their attacks automatically cause mortal damage, managed to kill 4 of those guys off, leaving only these 5 remaining Night Goblins as well. So combat's going very, very well for me at this point. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us directly to the end of the game. Ended up being a victory for yours truly. My opponent realized he didn't have very many forces left on the table except for his 5 Night Goblins, and he decided just to call the game at that point. But at the same time, though, I've also lost a lot of forces in this battle as well. So this battle was absolutely very bloody, considering it was Stormcast Eternals going up against Moonclan Grots. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over. Hey there, nation. Welcome to the After Action Report. This is the part of the battle report where we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for Age of the Realms, battle report number 31. Ended up being a victory for yours truly. So, with that being said, let's go and talk about my losses real quick. First of all, I lost Lord Ios of Azure's Earth as well as my witnesses. My buddy Skarsnik, however, he lost Skarsnik, Warlord of the 8 Peaks, the Shrinking Shroomhead, them Backstabbers, them Kamikaze Boys, them Bonebreakers, as well as the Rekkas. Let's go and talk about what led to this victory. First of all, I got overeager. That's just the easiest way of putting it. I sent my forces in too quickly by using the Scions of the Storm ability. I should have baited my enemy further into my kill zone before sending in my forces to finish him off. Because I got overeager, I spread my forces out too thin, and because my forces were spread out such over a large area, I was unable to appropriately support them like I originally had planned with my Lord of the Host abilities, as well as my Healing Storm abilities as well. I have to remember, I am playing a pretty small army for this one because Stormcast Eternal Armies are traditionally kind of small in number. I need to remember that and not spread out my forces too thin, otherwise my opponent will be able to take me apart. With that being said, of course, this was a very deadly battle considering I was fighting against Moonclan Grots. Most people see a Night Goblin army, they really don't think of it as being as devastating as it possibly be. And my opponent played this army very, very well. First of all, Fanatics, they're just as deadly as always. Ever since Warhammer Fantasy Battle, everyone has known that Fanatics are dangerous. They're just as dangerous as they were in Age of Sigmar as they were back in Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Also, that Curse of the Bad Moon spell was also pretty devastating. I was not prepared for that part. I had nothing really to kind of counter against that because I have no magic in my army for the most part. So because I might have to do something to kind of help out my magic abilities so that way I don't run into that problem ever again. Once again, this was a very fun game. Awesome opponent. Looking forward to the rematch. And I just like playing against Night Goblins. As always, you guys, please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. Also, remember to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Google+. Up on those pages, we put up a lot of information about what we're doing for the hobby side of our channel. So if you want to see exactly what kind of armies we're painting up, what kind of terrain we're making, those are the best place for you guys to find that kind of information out as well. Also, remember, we also are changing the air dates for our videos from now on. We're now uploading videos on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays now. We still keep on alternating between fantasy and sci-fi weeks. We're just changing up the days of the week for us to upload because it's just kind of easier for us in that part. So that's going to do it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to wrap up for now. Don't forget to tune in on Wednesday for our Warhammer Mighty Empires campaign for our Boulder Princess scenarios. So keep on tuning in for that one, you guys. As well as on Fridays when we upload our videos for Hobby Side as well as Cheap Shots as well. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. You guys stay classy. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Peace out.